I just want to thank you all for taking part of your day today on Saturday to meet with us all to talk about the Affordable Housing Bonus Program. We're very excited today to have a couple people speaking on the program, so you'll get to hear a lot of different perspectives. As for introductions, my name is Cynthia. I am a community organizer for the Richmond District with the Housing Rights Committee. And we just wanted to make a quick announcement. If you need translation, if you speak Cantonese, we will be having David translate for us in the corner. Do you want to say that in Cantonese?
Yes. 歡迎各位過嚟咧，我係姓葉嘅。咁我係今日大會嘅聘請嘅呢啲翻譯員啦。咁我係翻譯廣東話。咁各位咧有需要我嘅翻譯嘅時候啦，我哋因為我哋部機咧有少少技術嘅問題啦。咁我哋咧就主要咧集中喺呢個後邊右邊嗰度，咁我就可以即時幫你哋講解下我哋台上嘅人嘅説話啦，好唔好？多謝。
Thank you. So we're just gonna, before we sort of start with the program, I'm just going to do a little icebreaker with everybody. I know folks, icebreakers aren't necessarily the most favorite part of people's meetings, but this is going to be fun. So today we're going to do a raising hand activity. So just to sort of see who's in the room today, I'm going to ask a series of questions, and if you relate to the question, raise your hand. Okay. So the first question is, raise your hand if you live in San Francisco. Cool. So that's most of the folks in the room. Raise your hand if you've lived here for more than a year. Keep your hand raised. Keep your hand raised if you've lived here for more than 5 years. More than 10 years? More than 20 years? All right, so y'all have been here. I don't know if I want to keep going, but y'all have been here for a really long time. That's really cool. Raise your hand if you rent here in San Francisco, if you're a renter. Cool. Raise your hand if your rent has been increased in the past year. Raise your hand if you feel like you can afford to live in San Francisco. No, don't be bashful. If you feel like you can afford to live here, raise your hand. Cool.
Okay, why don't you try 40 years?
There are a couple folks. That's awesome. And I know folks are trickling in. There are a couple seats on this side of the room if folks want to sit down. Okay. And the last question is, raise your hand if you're afraid that you won't be able to stay in the city. Cool. So today we're gathered to talk about a program that the city's trying to push forward to help develop the Richmond. You'll hear a lot of different perspectives, but it's good to see that there are so many people here in this room who are worried and concerned about the Richmond and also San Francisco generally. The format of today's discussion will be a little bit special. So first we're going to have Supervisor Marr talk a little bit about the importance of tenants to stay in the city and the importance for the Richmonders to keep their small businesses and folks who have been here for a long time. Afterwards, we're going to have a presentation from my coworker Joseph from the Housing Rights Committee to talk about the difference between development and displacement, or how to balance the two. And then we're going to have Kirsten from the Planning Department to talk about the Affordable Housing Bonus Program. We're going to have a quick Q&A after Kirsten's presentation. And then afterwards, we're going to have two more people who we'll introduce when they come up to talk more about their perspective on the Affordable Housing Bonus Program, and then another Q&A. So, I don't know, did folks get a small piece of paper for questions when they came in? No? We're going to go around and pass out little pieces of papers. So, the way we're going to do the Q&A is, if folks have a question, we're going to invite you to write it down on a small piece of paper. Fred's holding it up. That's what it'll look like. And then our volunteers, raise your hand if you're a volunteer. We have a couple of them around the room. We'll be collecting them as you write them down. Okay? Does that, thumbs up if that makes sense? Sure. A couple of thumbs. Yes, they're for questions. So throughout all the presentations, you might have questions. These policies are really difficult, and I know I always have a lot of questions. If you have a question, instead of raising your hand and asking in the middle of the presentation, we're going to ask that folks write down your questions so that we can ask them during the Q&A portion. Okay? And again, our volunteers will be passing out those small pieces of paper.
Thank you.
All right. So again, there are some seats over here for folks if folks want to sit down. I see a lot of folks standing up. But without further ado, we have Supervisor Mart here to bring this conversation for us today. So, Ron will pass it on.
I wanted to just start by saying, look at yourselves here. It's an amazing group of people, diversity of age, probably spread out throughout the Richmond District, but also the Sunset. I know there's people from the Sunset, largely West Side, different languages. So the Housing Rights Committee and the Community Center that we're developing in the Richmond District, we're really trying to develop a vision of what we want for the neighborhood. As legislation moves forward, it should be driven by what our small businesses, residents who are here, and also other similarly impacted neighborhoods, what our vision of what our neighborhood should be. So I know that the Housing Rights Committee, Community Center is going to develop that vision with the planning department and our office so that it's coming from the bottom up, not from developers and the top down, as we've seen many city policies develop. I wanted to thank the Planning Commission staff that are here and the Mayor's office for delaying and having more dialogue as this ambitious ordinance moves forward as well. As I walked over here kind of down Clement Street or drove along Geary, it's a pretty amazing neighborhood we live in, and I think our goals for the community center are to respect the people and the legacy businesses to kind of our business corridors as we develop our positions on the housing density bonus program. I am pro-equitable development. I know the city needs to build more housing. I sit on the regional body that's the Association of Bay Area Governments and the MTC, the transportation body that's looking at housing needs, transportation, and jobs. And the region of 8 million people that we live in will be getting another million by, I think it's 2040. We have to plan for that. It's not just the east side that can absorb that need, but also the west side and other parts of the city. So I'm aware of that as we plan. And the mayor's proposal to build 30,000 new homes by 2020, I think is ambitious, and we have to do everything we can to support that. But it privileges luxury, market rate, and market-driven development, and we have to really pay close attention to that. As we know, we live in this housing crisis right now, an affordability crisis that was stated earlier. I also wanted to say that the density bonus proposal, I'm glad that as the mayor's housing advisor and Kirsten, who's going to speak a little bit later, Jeff Buckley and Kirsten and others brought it to us. They were really promoting the need for more middle-income housing, and I believe we do need more middle-income housing as well. But I have a number of concerns like other forums have brought up. I did want to say that the proposal results in quite a bit more market rate development that's going to move westward. And the ambitious goals of the mayor's office are important, but we have to really listen to the needs of not only the west side of town, but also other impacted neighborhoods. UC Berkeley has a really great analysis of gentrification and impacts of development. And I think they've identified the Mission and the South of Market and other neighborhoods as rapidly gentrifying. The Richmond is more of a slower, but it definitely is gentrifying. And I know some of the planning department folks were asking me not to focus on displacement necessarily because this plan tries to achieve more housing, but it also, I think, over the long term and even short term may lead to gentrification and potential displacement, especially of existing residents, many of them seniors and people with disabilities that are facing the brunt of the eviction crisis right now, but also many of the small businesses that we probably have walked by or as we took the bus here today as well. The proposed program is a middle-income housing project. It's really not an affordable housing program, but we do need more middle-income housing. But as Jeff Buckley and Kirsten brought it to our office, we sat down with the teachers union, for example, to say, do these income guidelines meet what a teacher or a household of a teacher and another earner could meet? And we're still waiting on some of those numbers. Is the middle income bracket even affordable for what we think of as middle income people? I also wanted to say, too, that I support more housing opportunities for first responders, teachers, and the workforce housing that we need to build in the city, but it really should not be done promoting more of a gentrifying effect in our neighborhoods, and it really has to be at income levels that middle income people can afford. Also, under the proposed program, the amount of inclusionary housing or the housing in a development would stay at 12%, or that's the below market rate, so it's only 12% that would be affordable to lower income people. That means that a full 88% of the new housing built, if this were to go through, would be built solely for middle income and upper income renters and home buyers. So a full 70% of the development, if this were to go through, really would be market rate or luxury housing. And I think that has a short and long-term impact on a neighborhood like the Richmond District or the Sunset as well. I did not kind of agree to sign on to the legislation like Katie Tang did because I had many concerns about it, and my appreciation for the planning department and the mayor's office for giving it more time as we give our input as neighborhoods as well. Another important part that I know that Peter Cohen and the Council of Community Housing Organizations and others will raise is, in many ways, the process is, we have to watch carefully because it takes out some of the voice of the Planning Commission commissioners and also the appeal decision-making power of the Board of Supervisors over different developments. But I know that that's being discussed kind of in some of the amendments as well. So there's amendments that Kirsten and others will talk about that's changed this from when it was first introduced. But I have a problem when we're giving away more authority of the planning commissioners and the Board of Supervisors, especially as development moves forward when we're in an affordability crisis like we are right now as well. Last point, I think our neighborhood is unique and special for many reasons. It's the people that live there. It's the affordability for small businesses that makes our neighborhood so unique and special as well. I think any city policies that threaten the displacement of small businesses and that affordability of our residents really has to be looked at very carefully. I know that there's a coalition of neighborhood groups, too, that are mobilizing to give a voice. But I'll just say my position is about equitable development for neighborhoods, looking at models kind of that we've developed in our city, but also throughout the region as well. We're quickly becoming the city with the widest wealth and affordability gap. It's unaffordable for me. I raised my hand when Jennifer asked if I'm in fear of being displaced in the city. I am the supervisor of the Richmond District, and I am in fear of being displaced because of city policies that are moving forward so quickly in our city. The last thing I'll just say is I think some of the solutions are support the building of the Housing Rights Committee and the Community Center and the visioning process for our neighborhood. The survey, if you haven't already filled it out, fill it out with your hearts and the protection of our neighborhood in mind, and really think about how we develop that vision and build a base that's going to defend our neighborhood and other similarly impacted neighborhoods. I think the delay is a good way for us to have a say in this process in developing a real middle income and equitable development solution for our neighborhood and the city. And lastly, how do we create an affordability mix so that regular residents and small businesses can continue to stay in the city? I was cautioned by some of the mayor's department heads not to talk about displacement or the crisis and to frame it more as stability. But I'm not going to stop talking about it as displacement and an affordability crisis because that's what it is. But I understand when the departments need to frame things positively, so we work together. And I know that there's really hardworking people from the Mayor's Office of Economic and Workforce Development to Planning and his senior housing advisors, and I want us all to be working together, not demonizing them as well. As the Housing Rights Committee said, let's have a great forum and many more as we build a vision for our neighborhood, and let's work with each other and not demonize each other as well, whether we're city department heads and others. I think the Planning Association for the Richmond Forum was a good start, but this one has a more diverse group of people, and tenants and regular residents, I think, need to raise their voice in this important discussion and dialogue that will change the Richmond and change the city kind of for many decades to come. So thank you for coming. Thanks to the Housing Rights Committee and our Community Center in the Richmond District. Thank you.